representative of our first keynote speaker, Dr. Aminu Media. So at this juncture, may I invite our second keynote speaker, His Excellency Senator Otumba Gbenga Daniel, ably represented by Dr. Babatunde Onadeko. You're welcome to the stage, sir.
Good morning, all. Once again, good morning, all. It's an honor to be here this morning, standing in this fully occupied hall. My name is Dr. Babatunde Onadeko, representing the former governor of Ogun State, His Excellency Distinguished Senator Otumba Engineer Gbenga Daniel, a fellow of the Nigerian Society of Engineers, to deliver this keynote address. While I will be standing on the existing protocol, I think I just have to, as a fellow of this AERMP, also recognize the president, Mrs. Dave S. Taiwo, and then our host here, Professor Odutola, FCIB, FERP. Once again, it's an honor standing before you today. Not long ago, a coordinated cross-border cyber incident simultaneously disrupted the banking systems, government platforms, and even critical hospital services across multiple jurisdictions. This will be the eye-opener to this keynote address. One attack, multiple victims, and yet no single ownership of the risk. Financial transactions failed and stalled, public services froze, and healthcare delivery faltered at the very moment lives depended on it. That incident was not merely a cyber attack, it was a systemic failure of enterprise security risk management, and it exposed a hard truth in today's interconnected world travels faster than responsibility. Now, what does this scenario that I've just painted reveal? It revealed a layered and systemic risk environment. The incident is a convergence of multiple enterprise risks unfolding at once. And now when you look at it, you then ask, what are the risks inherent in the scenario that I've just painted? I'm not going to, because of time, go into the details, but I'll be just giving the bullet points of the risk identified in this scenario that I've just painted. The systemic cybersecurity risk. We were able to identify interdependency and cascading risk. There is critical infrastructure risk. There is operational risk. There is governance and ownership risk. There is reputational risk. There is financial and economic risk. There is data privacy and integrity risk. There is the national security risk. There is health and safety risk. There is supply chain risk. Regulatory and compliance risk is inclusive. There is intelligence and information sharing risk. And of course, there is strategic and geopolitical risk. If we all listen to the two speakers, the chairman and the last keynote address presenter, virtually all these risks identified were mentioned. Now, The scenario underscores that enterprise security risk is no longer isolated or sector-specific. It is shared, interconnected, and systemic. These risks collectively reinforce the central arguments of this keynote, that is, enterprise security risk management must evolve into a coordinated, governance-driven, and multi-stakeholder framework capable of addressing complex, cross-cutting threats. It is against this backdrop that the theme of this conference, which is repositioning enterprise security risk management in an evolving global threat landscape, a multi-stakeholder imperative, resonates with urgency and clarity. The central thesis that I wish to advance is straightforward, yet profound. Enterprise security risk management can no longer reside within the confines of the IT department in our various organizations. It has to be narrowed down within that IT space. It is now a board-level responsibility, a strategic function, and a shared obligation across multiple stakeholders. Security is no longer technical alone. It is existential, economic, and institutional. Now, what has changed in what we have been saying? Three fundamental shifts define the evolving threat landscape before us now. The first one, the acceleration of threats powered by AI. And of course, AI, as we know today, even are being used to automate attacks, generate sophisticated phishing campaigns, and exploit vulnerabilities at scale and speed that have never been seen before. Now, second, the geopolitical weaponization of cyber capabilities. And yes, the third, the fragility of interconnected supply chains. A vulnerability in one node, whether technological, logistical, or human, can cascade across entire industries and nations, amplifying risk exponentially. Yet, despite these shifts, many organizations today continue to operate within the siloed AERMP structures. Security teams function separately from what we see today from enterprise risk units. Compliance is diverse from operations. Strategy is disconnected from execution. The cost of these silos is immense. It leads to delayed responses, fragmented intelligence, duplicated efforts, and ultimately systemic vulnerability. Even more concerning is the stakeholder mismatch that defines our current ecosystem. Governments regulate, the private sector owns and operates critical assets, academia conducts research, and civil society observes, but rarely do these actors engage in real-time, coordinated dialogue. We are, in essence, managing shared risks in isolation. Now, this must change. We must reposition ESRM with a new and expanded definition. ESRM should be understood as a strategic capability that aligns an organization's risk appetite with its business objectives and resilience posture. It is not merely about blocking threats, it is about enabling continuity, safeguarding value, and supporting informed decision-making. It is about ensuring that risk considerations are embedded at the highest level of governance and across every layer of operation. At this point, with humility, what we see across board levels now in most organizations, I am a non-executive director as well in one of the pension companies. There is a separate risk committee on that board. This is just to emphasize the point I'm trying to make here. So from a governance perspective, this repositioning demands an upgrade. Boards of directors and executive leadership must assume direct oversight of enterprise security risks. Clear lines of risk ownership must be established with accountability that is measurable and enforceable. Risk committees, just like I just said, must be empowered, and security leaders must have a seat at the decision-making table. Without this top-level commitment, ESRM will remain reactive rather than strategic. Equally critical is the dimension of culture and people. Risk awareness must become part of our organizational DNA. Every employee, regardless of role, position, job functions, nomenclature, whatever, must understand that security is their and collective responsibility. It must be embedded in performance metrics, reflected in key performance indicators, which is KPIs, and reinforced through continuous education and training. Security is not a department, it is a shared value. When organizations internalize this mindset, we then move from vulnerability to vigilance. The multi-stakeholder imperative, as highlighted in this conference, is not optional. It is foundational. Governments must play their role by formulating clear, adaptive policies, facilitating the sharing of threat intelligence, and enforcing baseline standards without stifling innovation through excessive regulation. The private sector, as custodians of critical infrastructures and data, must invest in resilience, adopt best practices, and participate in the sharing of anonymized threat intelligence. Now, let me also emphasize this. Risk management cannot be outsourced. Responsibilities remains with those who own and operate the systems. Academia and civil society must also rise to this occasion. They are uniquely positioned to conduct forward-looking research on emerging threats, develop the next generation of risk management professionals, and I'm sure AERMP is doing this very well, and hold institutions accountable in many ways. They should serve as our early warning systems, identifying patterns, forecasting disruptions, and challenging complacency. Their contributions are indispensable to a holistic ESRM framework. At the international level, cooperation is no longer a matter of diplomacy alone. It is a necessity for survival. We have seen cases where something will happen in Nigeria. Simultaneously, it's affecting one sector or one industry in Europe, in US, within the Asia environment. So threats do not respect borders. That's the point I'm trying to make here. And neither should our responses. Bilateral and multilateral framework. In the maritime domain, which His Excellency oversees, and in his current role as the chairman, Senate Committee on Navy, they have seen firsthand and then how collaborative patrols, shared intelligence, and coordinated strategies can significantly reduce risks such as piracy and illegal trafficking. These same principles apply across all domains of enterprise security. So how do we make this repositioning work in practical terms? First, we must institutionalize information sharing. Real-time and actionable intelligence must flow seamlessly between stakeholders and supported by trust and protected by appropriate safeguards. Second, we must conduct joint exercises that stimulate complex stimulate complex risk scenarios, allowing stakeholders to test their readiness and refine their responses. And thirdly, we must adopt the risk-based prioritization, focusing resources on the most critical vulnerabilities and high-impact threats, rather than spreading efforts too thinly across all our fronts. Reflecting on His Excellency's when he was the governor of Ogun State between 2003 and 2011, we recall how deliberate risk identification and mitigation was central to the success of that administration towards public projects. We understood that sustainability was not accidental, it was designed. So today, in overseeing the Nigerian Navy's mandate, thank God that I have Rear Admiral Atijo here, to secure the maritime environment and the domain, with other members of his committee, they see same principles at play. Critical maritime infrastructure and sea lines of communication represent not just security concerns, but enterprise risk with profound economic implications. Protecting them requires coordination, foresight, and a comprehensive AERMP approach. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, now the journey ahead is demanding, no doubt, but it is achievable. We are called upon to break down the silos, align interests, and build systems that are resilient but designed. We must move from fragmented responses to integrated strategies when it comes to AERMP, from reactive measures to proactive frameworks, and from isolated efforts to collective action. The stakes are high, but so too is our capacity to respond. Now, while I draw the curtain of this address, let us recognize that enterprise security risk management is no longer a technical function. It is a strategic imperative. It is the bridge between uncertainty and stability, between vulnerability and resilience. And as professionals, as leaders, and collectively as stakeholders, we have both the responsibility and the opportunity to redefine how security risks are managed in our respective organizations and across our societies and borders. Let us seize this moment with clarity of purpose and unity of action. Once again, on behalf of the former governor of Ogun State and the chairman Senate Committee on Navy, His Excellency, distinguished Senator Otumba Engineer Gbenga Daniel, I want to thank the leadership of AERMP for this honor and the privilege to present this keynote address. Once again, good morning and thank you very much.